One of the most impactful times I had in Iraq was when Pastor Skip Heidsieck, we arrive in Erbil and it's overcast and we're driving down these worn, torn, streets and it's kind of gray. And as we go into the city of Erbil, we realize that we're only like 20, 30 miles away from Mosul, which is in ancient history was half the city is ancient Nineveh. According to, biblical times, it was one of the greatest Assyrian, fortresses of its day, from Sargon II and Sennacherib, who we read about Isaiah and these guys that in the Bible ended up being taken captive and going to this place. And one of the unique things about that is we all know the story of Jonah. And in Mosul, that is ancient Nineveh where Jonah went to. You realize it was 600 miles away from, Tel Aviv or Joppa, where he was swallowed by a whale and spit out and walked 600 miles. He ends up there. And the amazing thing about Nineveh is that these people were known, the Assyrians, to cut the heads off their victims and lay them in the streets and at the front of the gate of the city. And such violence and it was called the Bloody City. Later on, Nahum would be known 150 years later to go back to this city and preach to it, calling it the Bloody City where the corpses would be laid high. And today, Mosul is occupied by ISIS, who do the same thing. And when I was there, Pastor Skip Heidsieck, he actually taught on the book of Jonah in one of the churches nearby. A woman was sitting there, and as the message of loving others and not running and going to a place like Jonah refused to go there. I mean, these people were gnarly people. They wanted to kill people and that fear. And this woman, afterwards, I talked to her. She said that her husband and her son were taken captive. She saw her husband killed before her eyes and doesn't know where her son is. But she said the reason why she was in that church, as Pastor Skip began to talk about the heart of God through the prophet Jonah, and encouraging the body of Christ there in Erbil, that she said she saw the hand of Jesus. She saw Jesus. She told me that as she fled Mosul, running for her life, she came to the mosque, which was the most safe place or a location where she felt she had put her trust in. And the mosque closed the doors and said, this is a sacred place. You can't sleep on the ground. You can't sleep on the stairs. And she didn't know where to go, but she saw droves of people walking down the street further to a nearby Catholic church. And the interesting thing is that the church, the gates were open, and people, Kurds, Yazidis, Christians, Muslims were coming in and sleeping on the stairs and in the church, and they were giving them food. And for the first time, she doubted her security, Islam. She doubted her mosque, because it was a sacred place. Where she was seeking refuge, she couldn't go and ended up in this Christian community of people. And looking around her, she realized there was a Kurd next to her, and like I said, a Yazidi and a Christian. And she was so blown away because she told me in broken English that she saw Jesus. And to me, that was very impacting, to be able to hear Pastor Skip share a message on Jonah that was relevant today and watch a life be changed as a woman sitting in that seat of that church that evening was experiencing the exact thing that Jonah had experienced, and to realize that she saw Jesus because the people of that church were actually the hands and feet of Jesus.